Well, heidi ho, neighbors, and welcome back to another episode of Dan's Pro Shop. I'm your man, Dan. Today, I cannot tell yins how jazzed up I am about this one. So obviously, yins know I'm hooked up with Fluke, which is as cool as it possibly could be. And I know they make a bunch of different cool stuff. Like their offerings are bloody endless. But for me and what I do in an industrial environment, today we're doing the Fluke 378 FC. In my opinion, I know, I'm like fangirling right now. In my opinion, this is the best darn thing that an industrial fella or fellette could possibly have in their toolbox. This is the stuff that this thing can do. Oh, this replaces probably 5 or 6 different testing equipment. It's just, I can't. I'm sorry. Let's just get into it. So, guys, the Fluke 378 FC. It's, I know. If you guys know, you know, I don't need to tell you. But I have purchased in the past, that was probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it may be. Yeah, let's lose them. I have a 376 that I've had in my inventory for quite a while, and I absolutely love that thing. And then they came out with this. I don't know exactly when this thing was released. All I know is it is newer and better than the 376, which I currently have. This guy, in case you're curious, the FC at the end of the title there, that means Fluke Connect. Because if you see the dots up here, like you can have this option 378 and then the 378 FC. That means that this thing has Bluetooth connectivity with the Fluke Connect app. And that really unlocks this thing. And let's be honest, you always have your phone in your pocket anyway. Everybody does. We all have it. And this Fluke Connect app for Android or Apple, it's free. Now, honestly, it's like any other app. There is stuff that you can purchase to make it cooler and do more stuff. But the free version does all the crap that I want it to do. And a whole bunch of stuff that's just like, it's so cool. Like there is one particular thing that connects this guy to the app that for industrial environments like this, it will tell you phasing and rotation.
Nice.
Right? I mean, to the average Joe, that may not mean much. But if you've been in this environment and you do this stuff, you know that putting in motors, especially pumps, whether it be hydraulic or water or whatever, but pumps specifically need to turn the right way on first start because that can be detrimental if they're not. So the fact that I can hook this guy up with Bluetooth wirelessly to my phone and I can clamp over the 3 supply lines going to my motor and it will just tell me, hey, in this orientation, 312 is counterclockwise. Like, it takes all the guesswork out. Now, if you're just replacing a motor that's already existing, well, just take your notes and pay attention and put it back the same way. But if you're doing something new for the first time, or you're working in a facility that you've never been in before and they don't have the standard, BOY, brown, orange, yellow for phasing and everything, you put this guy over there and it takes the guesswork out. You just know that so it's 1, 2, 3 counterclockwise, or 2, 1, 3 counterclockwise, or 3, 1, 2. It's so cool. And then you can do that multiple times just to check yourself. Either way, let's get into the kit so I can show you how insanely awesome this thing is. Now, guys, the box may look beefy. That's for good reason. There's no dead space inside this box. This is what you get with the 378 FC kit. Now, like most things from Fluke, you can buy different like trim models, if you will. Like you buy a new Chevy truck, you can get like an SE or an SEL or whatever it may be. This is the same thing. This is the full 378 kit that comes with this fantastic formed case. So not only do you get this snazzy case, bam, there she is, the 378 FC by Fluke. Now, like I mentioned, they make so much different stuff. Like, it is unreal the amount of crap that they make. But I feel this is the best darn meter that you can buy from Fluke. Now, keep in mind that is my opinion, and that is based off of my experience and what I do. What you do may be different. But dude, this thing is made for us people. It is beefy. It is pretty small for what it is. It has a huge amp clamp location, so you can get giant conductors in there. It does current on AC and DC. Now, I've reviewed a couple Fluke meters in the past, and a lot of you guys dropped in the comments, well, it doesn't even do DC amperage. Well, and arguably, how often do you run into that? I mean, this isn't 1940. We're not running 600-volt bridge cranes anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. I know they exist because I worked in a steel mill that had plenty of DC cranes in it. But let's just say the ratio of AC to DC in today's industrial manufacturing environment, 90% of the time you're running around AC. But at the same time, it is really cool that you can do DC. Like a prime example, like I'm going to show you later, is charging an electric forklift because it's a battery. So it's all DC. So, in the event that you may be an equipment mechanic or a fork truck guy or whatever you may do, if you need to see whatever the charging amperage is, this guy can do it. Now, me, myself personally, I'm not going to use the DC amp draw thing all that much. I mean, maybe smaller motors and stuff that still run on DC with a speed driver and everything. That's cool. It's nice that it has all of it. But what I'm getting at here, I know I'm rambling, is that you will use AC way more than DC. But it's still cool that this thing does it. Now, that's just the tip of the iceberg with functionality of this thing. Let's flip the page in the case, shall we? Look at that. There's multiple pages. It's so cool. So we have a little folder thing here for all the paperwork and all that stuff that you're not going to read. But it's cool that you can keep it in there in case you need to quick reference something. But if you have the Fluke Connect app, all of this stuff is digitized on the phone in your pocket. So even if you lose this or choose to ignore it or whatever, it's on your phone. So, next time you're in the can for 20 minutes just trying to suck up a little bit of overtime, maybe flip through your Fluke Connect app and learn how to use your meter. Now, right below that, we have two
marshmallows.
1,000-volt removable probes. And these are the probes that switch. I don't know if switch is the right term here, but, the most probes have that, like, chicken stick cap that goes over the end in case you're doing, like, PCBs and you need to be careful about where your probe's going. This one is integrated. So you can roll it back so you can screw on attachments and stuff and just have a lot of exposed conductor here. Or you twist it the other way and it covers most of the probe and exposes only the tip. So you can be a lot more precise about what you're doing. And the fact that these things are removable, like most leads, the test probes cannot come off of the lead. These ones do. So that allows you a lot more variability for attachments and whatnot. And speaking of attachments, this guy comes with a really cool alligator ground clamp. And there's a good reason for that. Not only is it just handy whenever you're doing testing that you can just clamp down onto a ground and use both your hands to do whatever you're doing, but this one also has field sense. Now, if you guys saw my previous video on the T6-1000, field sense is a new awesome thing, like procured, invented, and distributed by Fluke. Field sense allows a meter to, dare I say, wirelessly pick up amperage and, wait for it, and voltage. Yes, you heard that correct. We can now wirelessly check for voltage. It is the coolest thing ever, and I have absolutely no idea how the heck that they're doing this in here. Like, the amp thing actually makes sense because they're picking up the magnetic flux around a conductor, and you can do the algorithm and figure out how fast things are going in what direction and determine a current. But for voltage, I have absolutely no idea how that's working, but it is sweet that it does. Because whenever I bring you guys in here and show you more about what's going on, you'll get it. Like, the screen on this thing is big for what this meter is. It's backlit, which is freaking huge for this industry. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a situation where, you're in a dark corner behind an air compressor or something, and, you can't see the screen on your meter. So you're holding a flashlight in your mouth, and it's the fact that this thing's backlit is cool, and it's a sizable screen. Because of that field sense technology, we can now display voltage and amperage on the same screen at the same time. And because this thing has the clamp and the probes and all the accessories and everything, this is just, oh, I cannot tell you how awesome this thing is. Now, going further into the kit, because we're not done yet. This guy, obviously, you have your nice, super long silicone leads that disconnect on both ends for all of your attachments and stuff. And then we have this rope attachment. I think they call it something. IFlex, the Fluke IFlex. And the part number on this thing is I-2518, just in case you wanted to get one of these for a meter that accepts it or whatever. But this guy, super cool. This is like a removable amperage attachment for this meter and other meters like it. Like I know my old 376 has this same thing. But this is really cool. Let's say you are working in a cabinet or a disconnect or something where you cannot physically gain access to the conductor with the clamp. Okay, right? It happens, you know, cabinets get tight. So we use this guy here. Excuse me, I haven't even opened the thing yet. This guy here is just a conductive rope. So you can fish this through a cabinet or go around a motor lead underneath the machine or something. Once you terminate this back into where it goes and lock it, this end plugs into the bottom of your meter where the probes would go, and you put the dial on the iFlex selection, and now this is your amperage pickup. So like look at this thing. You can do whatever you need to do with it to get it to where it goes, and it has like a nice 4 or 5 foot long lead. And this just, it's so cool how they give you that flexibility and ability to get into weird stuff and do whatever you need to do to get the measurement that you need to do the repair or the job that you're doing. But this is like the most complete, like right out of the box, good to go, do what you need to do kit. I'm sorry. I'll bring you guys in and actually show you more what's happening here. Well, here we go. Now that you guys have an opportunity to actually look at the star of the show and not my silly face, like I mentioned, dude, this case is fantastic. Like, it's not a hard case, but it is pretty stiff. It's like that formed polyvinyl or whatever you want to call it. Either way, this little cutout thing, this is for that iFlex rope to wrap around inside. We'll show you when we get there. But first of all, nice case. You throw this in your backpack, your toolbox, or whatever, you know your stuff's going to be protected. So whenever you invest in one of these things, believe me, you want to protect it. So we get into here. Right off the bat, this is where the meter lives, in this nice little mesh pouch, and it has a bungee strap thing here and all that. But the meter, please excuse these leads. These are ones I had laying in my toolbox so I could play with this thing a little bit before I got out to you guys. But this is not the leads that it comes with, it's just some spares that I had. Now, speaking of things that this thing comes with, it also comes with a magnetic strap. And if you guys do this, I don't need to tell you how cool this is, because you're working in a cabinet, doing whatever you need to do. Slap that onto the cabinet, and now it holds this thing out in front of you, and it's just super handy. It's just, yeah, I don't need to tell you how awesome it is to have a magnet on there. And if you're not using it, just sticks onto the battery door. It's nice, sleek, out of the way. It's just handy to keep on here. Trust me, you're going to want that. Now we're actually on to the meter here, just to give you guys some dimensions. Here we are about 11 inches tip to tip, about 3.5 inches wide, and give or take 2 inches in depth or thickness. So here, the functionality, I dare say, is limited versus a traditional multimeter. But that is one of the coolest things about this. Just like the T6 1000, there's only so many selections here on the dial, because let's be honest here, you're a down and dirty industrial technician. We're not looking for sine waves and all this and that. You know, the thing's broke, I need to fix it. I need these measurements. So one of the coolest things about Fluke versus other manufacturers of meters, there are distinct 2 different voltage selections, one for AC and one for DC. Other meters only have one thing for voltage, and then you would have to hit a function button or select or something to change between AC and DC. And honestly, I mean, if you're used to that meter, fine. But if you're not and you forget to do that, the potential for false positives and stuff like that is, I'm not a fan of it. So at least with a Fluke, you know that you're on volts AC. you know that you're on volts DC. Now, since we're talking about ease of operation and the difference between the voltages here, amperage is the same way. Once we blow past ohms here, this is where you get to that field sense. So it does the amps and volts together. I will show you that when we get there. But this is how you do amperage here for AC and amperage for DC. There are two separate selections, so it makes it easy and you cannot screw it up. Like you see here, amperage DC, amperage AC, and we get that option for voltage AC. We'll get there. I promise you, it's so cool how that works. And then once we go through DC, it gets to iFlex. That's where the rope would connect into the bottom of here. See this weird plug setup? That's where the iFlex plugs into here, and it gives you the ability to plug that thing into here so you can use this function in places where this thing physically does not fit. Now, whenever we turn the meter on, it displays what it is. Awesome. But I mentioned backlight. Yellow button, press and hold for 2 seconds. Check that out. It's beautiful. I mean, this isn't show-stoppingly bright, but if you're in a dark room, it is plenty bright enough. And another cool thing that I really like that they did on this one is they give you a battery life indicator. So if you're getting low, you can replace this thing before you just pull it out of your box and it's dead. It's nice that you can actually gauge the battery life in these things now. And speaking of batteries, back here underneath this door, it's just 2 AA's. It's nothing crazy. So we'll go ahead and throw these fancy probes together. And like I mentioned, these things are the high grade silicone. Like, these are really nice. They don't kink and stick together and everything. These are really good high quality probes that come with this kit. So it's totally up to you which end that you put these things on, because both ends are the same. But I suggest the straight ones go onto your probes and the 90-degree ones go in the bottom of the meter. That just, makes it nicer. So in the event you drop this thing, you don't break one of the probes off the bottom. But now we have this thing put together, I want to show you another really cool function in the ohms. So one thing a technician like myself might find myself doing often, checking a fuse to see if it's good or bad. This is a super normal thing that we do all of the time. And with this 378, they've included a nice new little thing to make this even easier. So like we go up to ohms and continuity here, and it has that little symbol to tell you that it'll even make noise for continuity, but they've added a cool feature. Check this out. Set that off to the side so I have my hands free. Let's check the continuity on this here fuse and take a look at the screen. Did you see that? The screen lights up green whenever we have continuity. So in the event you are a place in the plant or a mill or whatever you're doing that you cannot hear that beep, or if you're in a weird spot, where you can't really read the screen or the value all that well, this thing lights up green. And like I mentioned, if you're in a dark environment, that means a lot. Like, this will put off a solid green glow inside of a cabinet or wherever you are. So if you can't see or hear it, you might even be able to catch the fact that, hey, that corner of the room just turned green. I know I have continuity. That is such a nice feature for this thing, and I can't tell you how awesome it is. And since we're on the topic of continuity and checking fuses and everything, another cool thing about the way this thing is shaped, it's easy to hold, not only in the hand, but you can hold it like a phone. I know kids today may not understand this, but back in the day, it was perfectly normal to do one of these all day. So you can still use your hands and, talk on the phone at the same time. Well, with that audible tone that comes out of this thing, it's not deafening. I mean, it's not quiet, but it's not super loud either. But, in an industrial environment, you want to be able to hear this thing. So in the event that you cannot hear it because it's so loud where you're working, hold it up here in your shoulder. Now we get a nice beep. And it's easy because it's right there next to your head. But if you don't have that option, you're laying on the ground, you're twisted up or whatever, you do that, you get that green light. It's just, that's probably the top 3 functions that you're going to use in one of these things on the day-to-day. And it's just cool that you can do that stuff. So we might as well go over the functions of this thing here. We'll start in the basement and work our way up. First one on the dial, volts AC. You guys see these buttons down here at the bottom? That gives you other stuff to work with. This guy here on the right, obviously, is the light. Then we have min-max settings and also inrush. A lot of you guys have asked about inrush. This guy is capable of inrush for AC and DC. We press and hold And that gives us a memory log of what's happening for our inrush. So we have this thing connected to whatever, we turn it on, it will log the inrush and display it on the screen. Now, since we're talking about inrush, amperage inrush is a big thing that you guys would be doing most of the time, at least what I do. Whenever you're trying to troubleshoot a motor, what is my inrush amperage and why am I blowing fuses every time I turn this thing on? Now we get to amperage AC, press the inrush button, and now the only thing that will display on that screen, when I have a conductor through here and I'm monitoring amperage inrush, that number will show up on the screen. It won't continue to change like it traditionally will, but believe me, I'll show you this when we get there. It's super cool and it's really handy. Now going back down, since I skipped some, voltage DC, same deal, not much going on, but it does what it's supposed to do. And it also does inrush, because so many of you guys were mad about the inrush and the DC capability and everything. Well, the 378FC does all of that stuff. Now, since we're talking about all kinds of stuff that it does, the min-max button, check that out. It will display that min-max, this is what you're trying to do. Here, max is lit up, so it will display the maximum voltage that you're reading during your test. Hit it again, the minimum voltage that you read during your test. Hit it one more time, and it gives you the average. The functionality of this thing is unparalleled. It's so nice how much stuff that this one meter does. And it's not only DC, it does this for AC also. So you choose what you want to happen on the screen. Now, we might as well turn the light on since we have it, and it's awesome. We'll move on up here to ohms and continuity. Now you see here, we're out of limits for kilo ohms. But another cool thing, you guys see that? That's right, capacitance. We have the ability to read microfarads. In case you guys are unfamiliar, I'll show you what that means. Now here we go. A couple capacitors, a known bad and a known good, just so you guys know that I know what's going on. This is actually a capacitor I just replaced in my air conditioner the other day, and this is just one that I had sitting on the shelf. This is brand new. I know it's good. So whenever we're checking capacitance or microfarads, this is a big deal. And specifically, the most common place you would run into this is on a motor. Like there's probably one on the blower motor in your furnace, and there is definitely one on the air conditioner outside of your house. So whenever we get into this and look at a capacitor, this is this big can looking thing. If you guys have ever run across one of these things are rated in microfarad. So if you look here on the label, we should be at 40 microfarad plus or minus 5. And it's rated for 440 volts AC and all kinds of other stuff. But either way, the way that we test this is that you go between your two main lugs here with the meter in the correct function, and it will tell us what's going on inside of here versus what it's supposed to be on the label. So in order to do this, we set our meter to the appropriate setting, hit the button, go over microfarad, make sure that the backlight stays on because why not? Take our probes and go between 1 and 2. Come on. There we go. Look at that. 24, 25 microfarad. The sticker says that we're supposed to be getting 40. This is a bad capacitor. Well, it's not totally bad, but it's not working the way that it should be. Honestly, I noticed some weird noises coming out of my compressor the other day, and this guy wasn't starting it adequately. So I knew it was bad, and now I can confirm it's bad with 378. So this one is junk. Now, to prove my point, we'll do the same test with a known good capacitor. So this guy, obviously smaller, but the exact same thing. You can tell here that we want to see 35 plus or minus 5, and we'll do the exact same test. Make sure that we have our meter set correctly. Go to 1 and 2. Look at that, 36. How about that? This is a good capacitor, and it's a known good capacitor thanks to the 378. Now we get up into field sense. This is what I was talking about, how cool it is. Look, we have amperage AC and voltage AC on the same screen. And you see here how we have this thing. It says, hey, dude, you're not grounded, because that's important. In order for the voltage function to work for field sense, you have to have this meter grounded. That's why they supplied that alligator clamp in the kit. I will show you when we get there, I promise. Whenever we get up here to amperage DC, it is what you think it is. And it even shows you a little thing like, hey guy, this is the way you need to use this meter in this setting. And then iFlex, same thing. It tells you you want to be able to use this. And this even gives you the functionality for amperage and hertz. Hertz isn't that big of a deal because, I mean, it just kind of is what you're supplied from the power company, unless you have capacitor banks and rectifiers and everything. But here in the States, we run 60 hertz, and more often than not, that's what you're going to see. It's just cool. That's just yet another function on the 378. Now, in case you guys are wondering what this button is here that I blew over, this button is how you activate Bluetooth and connect to the Fluke Connect app. So without any further ado, let's get into that. Now, as far as the Fluke Connect app goes, you guys are going to have to excuse me for lack of instruction here because I need to use my phone for the Fluke Connect app. However, I'm using the phone to record this video. So I will show you the setup and exactly what I'm doing and the test that I'm trying to run. And then I will screen mirror the Fluke Connect app and functionality, and then I'll voice over it and explain to you what's going on. So it may not be the best scenario, but at least you'll get what I'm talking about, I promise. All right, safety police, please don't hang me for this one, but this is for instructional purposes only. Now, this isn't an ideal situation, but if you've done this before, you know exactly what's happening here. In order to check a live circuit, you need to be able to get into a circuit while it's live. So, like I said, do as I say, not as I do, but whatever. This is for instructional purposes only, guy. We're going to dig into this cabinet here with it on, because in order to measure amperage, we need to have it on and running, and we need to have access to the conductors. So one of the cool things about the Fluke Connect app, and probably my favorite thing about it, other than the remote ability of it, because that's really cool too. I'll explain the situation why I love that so much. But let's just say I need to check phasing and rotation of these supply lines. Because right now it's hooked up to the lathe. I know what it does and everything works, but let's just say I've never done this before, and I need to make sure that whatever I'm tapping into here spins the right way the first time. Now, whenever I say spin the right way, in case you're unfamiliar, if you're looking at an electric motor on the shaft side, meaning the output shaft, so there's usually a rear end where there would be an internal cooling fan or something, and then the other side would have a stub sticking out of it, which is the drive shaft. If you're looking at it from the shaft direction, so you're looking at the shaft of the motor, which way that spins determines counterclockwise or clockwise. So whenever we get into this, that will make a difference. You need to know that before we get into this, because the information is only as good as what you can do with it. So you need to be educated before. Like, you can do all the testing in the world, but if you don't know what you're getting from that test, it doesn't mean anything. So in order to do this particular test on the Connect app, I set the meter to amperage AC because that's what we're checking here. Then simply hit and hold the min-max button, and it will pop up a thing on the screen, line 1, line 2, line 3. And it will prompt you through and tell you what to do. Like right now, it says line 1. It's flashing. It tells me what to do. So I'm going to put the clamp over line 1, let it chill there, and turn on your load. Let something run. Cool. Now once we get our reading on line 1, go to line 2. We get our reading on line 2, go over to line 3. Once the app is satisfied, disconnect, stop your load, make everything safe. Alrighty, so you guys saw what was physically going on. Now I'm going to show you the app. Once you download and open the Fluke Connect app, it will just automatically find the meter that is within its Bluetooth range. Accept it, whether you want notifications or whatever. Get on the appropriate setting and start doing your test. Here you see that line 1 just came online because that's what I was measuring. Now, line 2, because I'm actively moving the clamp as this is happening. Now you're going to see line 3 come on, and in the top right-hand corner there, it tells me that I have clockwise rotation. Now, this is the stats of that test. It tells me the voltage and the amperage of line and the rotation of the test that I just did. Now, just to switch things up so you guys can see what's going on, we're going to back out of this, just change the dial on the meter just so it changes functionality. Like here, I went to a different thing, and just go back and forth so you restart the test. I find that's the easiest way to do it. Now, we're going to get back into that original same test here for rotation, and I'm going to do it out of order. I'm going to do line 2 in the cabinet, then 1, and then 3. And you guys will watch them populate in line 1, 2, and 3, and it will change the rotation setting or the readout on top. You see how now, because I did it in a different order, I'm now spinning counterclockwise, and the same thing. It gives me the voltage and amperage per line and tells me which way it's rotating versus which wires I read in what order. Now, hopefully I did a decent job at explaining that over this screen mirror shot thing there, but you kind of got what I was going at. It's so cool that we can do this crap now, and I can check phasing with the same thing, because traditionally you would need a separate piece of testing equipment to check phasing, like rotation, on 3-phase circuitry. Now that we can do all of that on the same thing and just use the phone that's in my pocket anyway, and the fact that like I can put this in a cabinet and walk away, and I can use my phone somewhere in a safe location or whatever in case you're doing something iffy. It's just nice. It's super cool that you can do that. And in case I forgot to mention, because I'm pretty sure that I did, in order for that to work, we need to connect our ground clamp thing here. It's all included in the kit, but that is what makes the field sense work. That's what gives us the voltage and amperage on the same reading. Now, this volt clamp, this ground clamp thing, doesn't need to be on here all of the time. If we're checking just amperage, like a traditional clamp meter, that doesn't need to be on here. I'll show you what I mean. So we have our meter set in amperage AC. We'll go ahead and turn on the load. There we go. 8.5 amps on 1, 8.9 on 2, and 8.1 on 3. And keep in mind, this is without the ground connected. This is just traditional amp clamp here. Now, if we want to do that same test but include voltage, which is that really cool field sense thing that Fluke created here, we now have to plug in the ground probe to the bottom. And now we go over a conductor, turn it on, and it tells us voltage and amperage. You may not be able to see that very well. I'll bring the screen in for you. So here we have the ground connected, and I'm showing 8 amps and 250 volts on line 3. We change this over to line 2. Come on, there we go. 8.9 amps and 256 volts. How cool is that? So I no longer have to use my probes and actually check something for voltage. I can do both readings at the same time. Now, just in case you guys are curious about that, the iFlex rope thing, I'll do that real quick and show you how that works. Now, obviously, this application probably wouldn't be the best for this, but it still works. I'll show you what I mean. So we got this nice rope here with a super long lead. Unlock it so we can open this thing. Make sure that you have everything unplugged and unstuck from where you have your meter. We plug the bottom of the iFlex rope into the bottom of the meter. It only goes in one way, super easy. And make sure that you are over in the iFlex selection on the meter. Now, once we have that selected, you can now fish this thing through any conductor that you want, just like so. You guys can tell here on the screen I'm reading 0. Let's turn our load on. Look at that. 8.6 amps, the same thing we were reading before. This is super accurate and nice to have. And bear in mind, all of this stuff is usable on the Fluke Connect app. So like you can actually be recording all of this crap through the app and go over it later. It's nice that you have it right here in your hand and on your phone. So let's just say that you're doing a repair, or like you need to justify to your boss that you need a new $2,000 motor or something. You no longer have to have him just take your word for it. You can show him the data on your phone. You can save all this crap, email it to him, just show him whatever. It's nice that you have this stuff in your cornucopia of options. Now, I know since so many of you got hard up about the other meters that didn't do DC, let's go and show you a good example of how that would work. Alrighty guys, so here we are at an electric tow motor. If you guys are familiar, a lot of these things are electric because we're running them inside. So this thing is basically a giant RC car. There is a huge battery underneath the seat that is DC. So it takes this thing to charge it. It's ridiculous. These conductors are huge, which is another reason why this area being big is such a big deal. Let me bring you in and show you what's going on, and we can do like a DC inrush and a DC current test so we can see what's going on in an actual live DC circuit. Go ahead and get all this crap out of the way. Come on, there we go. All right. Now, here Jens are looking at the battery pack for a forklift. And keep in mind, this is a small forklift. Electric forklifts get enormous. So this is just a little taste for you. But you just unplug from the battery into it. And then we plug the charger into the battery bank. Once all that is put together, now we can come over here and do some measuring. So we'll go ahead and take our 378, set it up in amperage DC, which is easily and correctly noted here on the dial. Pick a conductor. We'll just go over the hot one. Put it on there, and then throw the disconnect for the charger and let this thing start chooching. Now, I don't know how well you guys can see this thing, but this is cooking at like it probably went up to 200 and some amps. Now it's coming back down to 130-ish. I'll show you what I mean. So now we have the charger running. You guys can probably hear the cooling fan. Just simply pick a conductor, throw it over there. Let me turn the light on so you can see that. Here we are, amperage DC. She's just going up because she's ramping into charge. This thing will probably go up to around 240 or so and then start coming back down to float for charge. But this is just another really cool thing. So in case you are one of the guys that work on these things, now you can check the health of your battery bank, the fact that it's charging and this and that. And it's nice that this thing has the capability to do all of this stuff in one package. Well, guys, man, I know I didn't go over everything. And it's, you know, if I really went through everything this thing did, we'd be here all day. So I'm just trying to respect your time just a little bit. But at the same time, show you how bloody freaking awesome this thing is. Now, I know I've said that about a lot of Fluke meters, and rightfully so, because Fluke is really bloody awesome. But this one takes all of my favorite stuff and puts it into the same thing. Like the 323 is great for what it is, and it's a little more cost effective. The T6-1000 is fantastic for what it is. That one's super down and dirty. Like throw it in the bottom of your toolbox and like, it's a bulldog. It will run forever. This guy is the cream of the crop. This one rises to the top of the batch because it takes the best of everything and puts it in one package. Now, keep in mind, that functionality and awesomeness does come at a price. This one is pricey. It's just south of $1,000, I believe, for this get up here. Now, I know, $1,000 for a multimeter. But dude, look at what it can do, man. Like, especially like if you're a contractor or something and your time is money, you can now do multiple tests at the same time. And not to mention with the Fluke Connect app, you can now save all of that crap onto your phone, show it to your customer, show it to your client or whatever. You no longer need to prove your story because the data is right there in front of them. Excuse me, Mrs. Smith, you need a compressor on your AC condenser outside. Well, why? Because look at this. This number should be 240 and it's 137. You know, it's honestly will pay for itself. And if you're in a situation such as me where you're just industrial doing stuff like this, I cannot tell you the amount of hours and diag that this will save me. And like I mentioned, the Fluke Connect app, the fact that it's on your phone and everything. So I told you I would give you a scenario of why that Fluke Connect app is so good and why your phone can be the screen for this thing away from it. So not long ago, I was debugging a solenoid valve on a hydraulic stack, right? Well, if you're familiar with injection machines, there are valves all over that bloody thing, and there's only one spot where you operate all of it from the controller, right? So I had a valve that I was suspecting was bad, and I needed to make sure that there was voltage there. Well, in industrial maintenance, you find yourself working by yourself quite a bit. So I hooked up the Fluke Connect capable meter. Well, that was a 376 until I got this bad boy, but it does the same thing. I hooked that meter up on the back side of the machine, probably 40 feet away from me. And then I enabled the Bluetooth Fluke Connect. So now I can watch everything on my phone and record it walked back around the machine to the operator station, hitting buttons, I can now monitor what's happening on that valve, clean in the back away from me 40 feet. And I'm able to hit the buttons and look at my phone at the same time and see what's going on. It is just absolutely invaluable, the fact that you can do all of this crap with 1 meter. And this Fluke 378 FC just blows it out of the water. The fact that you can do all of this stuff in one convenient kit, and it comes with all the stuff that you need. Like I mentioned before, I know I'm fangirling, but dude, this thing is so worth it. And if you're in the industry, you know that the further you go, the more expensive your toys and your tools get. And rightfully so, because you are getting better and more worth it and more valuable. So it's just like, it's a natural progression. The better you go, the better your stuff gets, and the better it helps you. It is worth investing in good equipment that saves you time, saves you money, does the correct job correctly the first time, so you can get to your diagnosis and end repair that much faster. Man, I gotta tell you, all the stuff that this thing does, I would absolutely be floored if they came out with something that did more better stuff than this in one package, because it really does it all. It is just so handy, this thing all in one. So I'm sorry, guys. I've done my thing. I feel like I've done it justice. Like I mentioned, there is a lot more stuff, so feel free to do your own research. But guys, 378 is it for me. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial and how-to on the 378. And if you are interested, make sure that you check out the links down in the description to grab one for yourself. At very least, just to check it out, go through some literature. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. You're a big kid, right? You know, if you're interested in something like this, make sure you make an informed decision before you invest in something like this. And it is an investment. This is not just a toy that you leave in your toolbox. This thing can potentially save your life and make you money. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little one and take something away from it. And we will see you next time.